Are the Ukrainians committing genocide? I ask you.
What's that got to do with Israel?
I ask you. There are
Actions
viewers.
there.
Yes, but we've got to inform your viewers of the facts, and you just misled them.
And it comes back to it again, you see. Instead of addressing it, we have the "how dare yous," the "I think this is appalling," this is shameful.
Because on both sides, actually, don't we?
Because, well, I haven't said that, of course. I find my fellow guests here to simply have different views from me.
Have you imagined living in a world where misinformation thrives and agendas overshadow the truth? Well, Douglas Murray, a renowned author and political commentator celebrated for his sharp intellect and commitment to factual discourse, has once again destroyed woke journalists over their biased narratives.
I was in Ukraine last year. Are the Ukrainians committing genocide? I ask you.
What's that got to do with Israel?
I ask you. There are many wars going on.
Yeah.
Is Ukraine...
In today's video, we'll be looking at two defining moments when Douglas Murray skillfully dismantled these journalists, exposing their flawed arguments and challenging the very foundation of their assertions. Whether discussing complex geopolitical issues or contentious cultural debates, Murray's clarity and assertiveness leave no room for myths to prevail. First, Murray establishes the facts before diving into any debate. In discussions about Gaza, he emphasizes the importance of historical context, such as Israel's 2005 withdrawal from Gaza and the subsequent rise of Hamas. He highlights that Israel's actions are often framed unfairly, overshadowing the complexities of a region fraught with historical grievances. This strategy ensures his arguments are rooted in a foundation that agenda-driven journalists often overlook.
I don't think that at all that what's happening in Gaza is genocide. I think it's an unbelievable smear against Israel. I've covered that war as I've covered many others.
Don't you think it's a self-inflicted smear against Israel?
No, I mean, I was in Ukraine last year. Are the Ukrainians committing genocide? I ask you.
What's that got to do with Israel?
I ask you. There are many wars going on.
Yeah.
Is Ukraine committing genocide?
No.
Right.
Next up, Murray explains the cause and effect nature of conflict. He underscores that wars have consequences, which apply universally, be it Russia's invasion of Ukraine or Hamas's actions against Israel. In his view, the narrative should not focus solely on outcomes but also on the instigators of violence. He challenges journalists who frame Israel's military responses as disproportionate, pointing out that such responses are reactions to provocation, not unprovoked aggression.
I don't think that at all that what's happening in Gaza is genocide. I think it's an unbelievable smear against Israel. I've covered that war as I've covered many others.
Don't you think it's a self-inflicted smear against Israel?
No, I mean, I was in Ukraine last year. Are the Ukrainians committing genocide? I ask you.
What's that got to do with Israel?
I ask you. There are many wars going on.
Yeah.
Is Ukraine committing genocide?
No.
Right.
Is Russia committing genocide?
Russia is committing a war of hostile aggression, for sure. Although it doesn't seem to be attempting to eradicate the Ukrainian population as a whole, which is, of course, what genocide is.
Which is what Israel seems to be doing with the Palestinians.
Which is not doing.
I know that you work for Fox News.
It gets more interesting when Murray addresses allegations like genocide or illegal occupations. He counters these claims by demanding precision in language and evidence. For example, he questions why Egypt's role in blockading Gaza is often ignored while Israel is vilified. By spotlighting such inconsistencies, he reveals how selective reporting distorts public perception when
Fox. But the allegation of genocide against Israel, why would Israel be committing genocide in Gaza?
Well, what would you describe it?
It's a war. It's which I've seen up close.
Okay.
So let me just explain that. If you start a war, which is what Hamas did on the 7th of October, if you start a war, there are repercussions.
When journalists argue that Gaza is under Israeli occupation, Murray dismantles this claim by recalling Israel's complete withdrawal from Gaza nearly 2 decades ago. He points out that since then, the territory has been governed by Hamas, whose priorities often conflict with the welfare of Palestinian civilians. He argues that the narrative of occupation is outdated and detracts from addressing the real issues, such as Hamas's governance and its impact on Palestinians.
As you know,
Well, as you know, if you've been, Gaza also has a border with Egypt. Why do you not mention Egypt? Egypt has a stronger fence to fence in the people of Gaza than
so
Israel
you agree
does.
that Gaza has been fenced off?
No, it's fenced off, although you might note that there are more workers until the 7th allowed into Israel to work and indeed to have medical treatments and others that were considered necessary, which Hamas doesn't provide.
Tie on. Douglas does not shy away from the humanitarian toll of conflict. He acknowledges the tragedies on all sides but reiterates that initiating war carries unavoidable consequences. He juxtaposes the suffering of Israeli civilians and Palestinian civilians, arguing that Hamas's actions, such as taking hostages and using civilians as shields, escalate the humanitarian crisis.
Plenty more people every day coming into work in Israel from Gaza until the 7th than were going the other way into Egypt. So if I go back to this question, why do you say there's an illegal occupation of Gaza? Why did you say that?
Because there is.
Why? Well, who is
Israel
occupying
is an
it?
occupying state.
No.
It is
hang on.
internationally recognized.
No. It's not. It's not at all.
I want to move
that's
on.
Your view. Hang on. That's your view, and I have to correct your view.
Murray also dives into the long-discussed two-state solution. While many journalists propose this as a panacea, he critiques Hamas's unwillingness to coexist with Israel, citing their history of violence and refusal to recognize Israel's right to exist. This, he asserts, complicates any hope for peaceful resolution.
That's your view, and I have to correct your view.
Our views
I have to correct. No, it doesn't. The facts, our views might differ, but the facts are the facts, and I want to pick you up on something you just did.
I'm interviewing you.
I know, but
Yes.
I think you're uninformed.
No.
So let me just.
Hardly.
So let me. You are uninformed
Oh,
because
really?
first of all,
Yes.
you didn't say that Egypt is blockading Gaza. Secondly,
Next, Murray often shifts focus to media bias. He critiques how some journalists frame conflicts in a way that disproportionately blames Israel while ignoring broader regional dynamics. He underscores the importance of balanced reporting, which he feels is often sacrificed for sensationalism.
you to mention Israel because you've clearly got an animus here. But let me come on to the second point. As you well know, in 2005, Israeli troops ripped Jewish families from their home in the Gaza.
That was after Palestinians had been ripped from.
First, Murray engages his audience by prompting them to consider alternative viewpoints. He asks why similar conflicts elsewhere do not receive the same scrutiny, drawing parallels with situations like Russia and Ukraine. This comparison sheds light on inconsistencies in how global conflicts are reported.
Your viewers of the facts, and you just misled them. In 2005, Israeli troops ripped every Jewish family from their homes in Gaza and handed over all of Gaza, which was completely clear of Jews.
That was after two Nakbas, I think in 1948 and 1967, when Palestinians were ripped from their homes that were originally there.
That's your
I know, so let's
specific interpretation of the history, and yours is a very no. But we can agree to disagree, but don't misinform your viewers. And
What sets Douglas apart is his ability to remain composed under pressure. Whether faced with hostile questioning or attempts to derail the discussion, he stays focused on the facts. His calm demeanor often leaves his opponents struggling to counter his points effectively.
can go back. Well, I'm not misinforming your viewers. I'm informing them because you're not. The point that I'm trying to make, which
Israel
you keep
moved away from Gaza, and Gaza has been sealed off ever since.
The point you keep on trying to distract everyone from is that Israel took every Jew from Gaza in 2005, handed it over to the Palestinians, who then voted in Hamas, and to the great detriment of the Palestinian people. They have been ruled by Hamas for the last 18 years. If you want to look to the source of the conflict, look to that fact.
Douglas Murray's approach to shutting down agenda-driven journalists is methodical and impactful. By prioritizing facts, exposing inconsistencies, and maintaining composure, he demonstrates the power of informed debate. Through his efforts, he continues to encourage a more balanced and thoughtful discourse on some of the world's most contentious issues.
No, it's very, because you just did it again. You just threw in another false fact. We are not where we are today because of settlements in the West Bank that are disputed. That's not why Hamas broke out of Gaza on the 7th of October and massacred people in their homes.
As we know,
that's not because of the West Bank, and you well know it. You well know that. You well know that Hamas did not commit the massacre of the 7th of October because of settlements. They did it by their own admission because they want to massacre every Jew they can get their hands on, and Hamas has said they will do it again and again. So don't get onto the distraction of settlements. That is a second-order priority. The first order...
It's easy to fob those off, isn't it?
It's easy for you to try to distract people about it. But I'm saying don't distract them from the crimes of Hamas.
During another moment with a woke journalist, he addressed a subject he frequently loves to talk about, immigration policies. He advocates for a structured and fair system, ensuring that those in genuine need of asylum receive it. However, he emphasizes the importance of distinguishing between refugees and economic migrants.
Dental checks, medical checks of some description to assess whether they are the right people to come to this country.
Of course it is. The strange thing about this debate is, if I may say so, the reason why it goes so wrong and why you can hear very nasty things on all sorts of sides at the moment is because we keep on trying to shut down very general and sometimes very practical suggestions. David Davis is not the Prime Minister, he is a backbench MP, and he suggested on Twitter that maybe people could have dental checks. Now, dental checks are one of the ways on the continent which people use to try to work out the age of people who claim to be refugees and who are migrants.
For Murray, the failure to make this distinction undermines the integrity of immigration systems. He believes that unchecked immigration strains national resources and can lead to social unrest. By advocating for dental or medical checks to verify the age and legitimacy of asylum claims, Murray argues for a practical approach to a complex issue.
The continent is in a crisis on this question at the moment. And instead of addressing the roots of that crisis, instead of addressing the huge things that are happening, we have these weird debates about what one backbench MP has said about people's teeth. This is not a
I think the point that Samantha's making is, what does it say about us as a country?
Well, it says about us that we need to have a legal manner of allowing people into this country. And it is appropriate that we find some way of testing their age. And if you don't like teeth, you've got to come up with another way.
Next, consider the accusations levied against Murray during debates. Journalists often accuse him of being callous or xenophobic, but Murray dismantles these claims by grounding his arguments in data. For instance, he points out that not all migrants are fleeing war-torn regions. Many are moving for economic reasons, in one heated exchange.
I think that's the very, very germane point you just made, without paperwork because of circumstances. And may I just say, regrettably, despite what is his rather extensive experience in this area, Douglas has just actually fallen into the trap of oversimplifying this question, oversimplifying the issue. I mean, Douglas, how dare you say that those people who are coming from countries other than Syria are not refugees and do not have a right to be in this country? How dare you say that simply because they may have ended up in one other European country before they found their way to Calais, we do not owe them a duty? That is, quite frankly, I think that is shameful.
A journalist attempted to shame Murray for his stance on refugees, suggesting his views were morally reprehensible. Yet, Murray calmly explained the need for a systematic approach, noting that without proper checks, national security and societal harmony could be at risk.
I don't know who appointed you the school ma'am of this debate, but let me just explain to you what the facts are on this. We do owe an asylum, a legitimate asylum, to people who are genuinely fleeing war and conflict. However, as I say, if the European Commission's own figures of 60%, which they came up with Frontex of last year, of people are not people with any right to be here, we have to address this. And it comes back to it again, you see. Instead of addressing it, we have the how dare yous, the I think this is appalling, this is shameful. Because we can't
actually, don't we?
Well, I haven't said that, of course. I find my fellow guests here to simply have different views from me. But this is the problem with this debate. Millions of people have come into Europe, and millions more will be coming, and our continent probably cannot cope with that. Now, I suggest that in order to deal with this very large problem, we have a very wide range.
Douglas Murray also delves into the impact of immigration on national identity. First, he highlights the positive contributions immigrants can make when they integrate and contribute to the host country. This includes boosting the economy and enriching cultural diversity. However, next up, Murray raises concerns about the risks of unchecked immigration. He argues that failing to ensure migrants align with the country's values and laws can lead to societal fragmentation. For Murray, the balance lies in welcoming individuals who enhance the country while safeguarding its core principles.
Discussion. But if we try to school-marm it and shut it down, as you've tried with David Davies, and as you've just tried, not very subtly with me, we can't get anywhere.
Can I just make one comment? Douglas has said, you made one point which I think is actually the very point about oversimplification. You say the continent is in crisis. Douglas, I beg to differ. The world is in crisis. And actually that is the issue that we all need to take on board. It's not simply a case of, oh, let's ring-fence Europe and let's protect Europe and let's shut our eyes to what is going on in the rest of
It gets more intriguing when analyzing Murray's ability to counter emotional appeals. Many journalists attempt to frame immigration as solely a humanitarian issue, disregarding the logistical and economic challenges it presents. Murray counters this by urging a broader perspective that considers both compassion and practicality. For example, he stresses the importance of prioritizing genuine refugees while addressing the needs of existing citizens. Murray believes this balanced approach ensures long-term stability and fairness, avoiding the pitfalls of hasty, agenda-driven policies.
People, I would say, who are on the other side of the debate suggest that because certain people appear to be older, they should not even be brought to this country to even be assessed.
At the expense of others.
Yes, you see, this is the problem, is that these are people who've jumped the queue and have then lied about their identity.
They go through rigorous checks in Calais, and there are organisations within Calais, such as Citizens UK, who can tell you, who can give you chapter and verse, have gone through absolutely harrowing emotional experiences.
And I don't think this debate is questioning the need, but it is questioning whether or not...
Sorry, we do need to question the need on this, because as I say, I reiterate, there is already legitimate grounds for people from Syria fleeing the Syrian civil war to claim asylum.
But that is a wider debate, isn't it? What we're looking at specifically here, Douglas, if you don't mind.
Next up, Murray often points out how media narratives can distort public perception. Journalists, he argues, sometimes prioritize sensationalism over substance, framing debates in ways that vilify those who question mainstream views. Murray exposes these tactics by redirecting focus to the facts and challenging the inconsistencies in their arguments.
What we're looking at specifically here is whether or not it is right to have medical checks to assess age and whether those people should be granted asylum. I've just said
that it is, and actually you have just said that it is. It is legitimate to check people's ages.
Yes, I don't
So we're in agreement on this. But where we're not on agreement, which is why I come back to it, is that all of the people in Calais have, for instance, fled war. They haven't. If you go to Calais and if you go to the points of entry, like the Italian points of entry, most of the are fleeing from sub-Saharan Africa and have no more right to claim asylum than anyone else in the world.
Croydon this week, are they older than they should be? Some people suggesting that they might be in their mid-20s up to 30. And does that then raise child protection issues? But are we then giving them places at the expense of others who are desperately in need?
Of course we are.
I don't think we are.
During one exchange, a journalist accused him of fear-mongering for highlighting the crime rates associated with certain immigrant groups. Murray responded by citing statistical evidence, emphasizing that addressing these issues transparently is essential for building trust in immigration policies. It gets even more compelling when discussing Murray's call for accountability. He insists that governments and media outlets have a responsibility to provide accurate information and implement policies that serve their citizens' best interests.
Is whether or not you reward people for, first of all, breaking the rules by ending up in Calais, and secondly, reward them by allowing them to lie and getting away with it. And I think this is a very unwise thing to encourage. There is already a process in Europe for people to claim asylum. If you reward people who jump ahead of that queue and you reward people who lie, including lying about their age, it's very unwise. Is it right to talk about reward when we think about what a lot of these people have been through to get there in the first place? I reiterate the point. If you go to the points of entry, you will see that most of the people coming into Europe have no more right to be here than anybody else in the world. They are fleeing.
For Murray, this includes ensuring that immigration policies are enforceable and equitable. He argues that allowing unchecked immigration not only undermines national security but also erodes public trust in governing institutions. First, Murray's arguments extend beyond immigration, touching on broader societal challenges. He frequently discusses the importance of free speech and open debate, warning against the dangers of censorship. For him, shutting down dissenting voices stifles progress and prevents meaningful solutions.
fleeing situations
and
that we in Europe
we have a right to flee.
Sorry, can I just correct you on this? Because this is a very important disagreement. No. Everyone in the world who is poor does not have the right to come to Europe. They do not. We do not want them here. We do not want them here. We cannot afford them. We cannot integrate them. We cannot afford to keep them here.
That's quite right, and that's not actually the status of this debate. You know, that's not the question, and I'm shutting you down on talking about poverty because I think that you're obfuscating the point.
Because you just said, sorry, you were interrupting me to say, does being poor is not a reason to come here? And I'm saying, no, it is not.
Next up, Murray highlights the importance of addressing the root causes of issues rather than focusing on superficial debates. For instance, he argues that Europe's immigration crisis stems from geopolitical instability and inadequate border policies, which require coordinated efforts to resolve.
Reason to make the British government allow and reward people who break rules. We have a policy to give people asylum. You cannot have a policy that then rewards people who break the law and who then lie.
So are you?
And there you have it. The very essence of Douglas Murray's impact as he masterfully challenges agenda-driven narratives with clarity and reason. His debates exemplify the power of critical thinking and the importance of open dialogue in addressing today's most complex issues. What's your take? Are Murray's arguments reshaping public discourse or simply fueling existing divides? Share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more insightful content exploring the debates shaping our world today.